Now the first thing we are going to paint is the sky. So let's begin. So I'm going to put this somewhere where I can see it as a reference guide, and then I'm going to begin. So I'm going to wet my brush, dab it, and then I'm going to wet the whole sky area. So the sky comes down to about here. So I'm going to wet this whole area. Now you have to do this fairly quickly because it's quite a big area and this is quite a small brush. So I'm using quite a large amount of water, as much as I can get, onto the paper. And I am actually using too much. It's starting to look like a puddle. But that doesn't matter because I'm going to let it dry a bit. You can even dry your brush and wipe some of this water off like that if you've got too much. So you don't want a big puddle and you don't want big dry patches. So there we go. Next I'm going to get some red paint and I'm going to do this cloud excuse me, I'm going to do this cloud in the distance. So because I've wet the paper, when I add this paint I'm going to get a really soft edge, and we can test it first. We can check how fast it's spreading out. The faster it's spreading out, that means that the paint, or the paper, sorry, is very, very wet. And if it's too wet, then the paint's going to really spread out very, very quickly, and we're going to find it very difficult to create the shapes we want. So we have to be patient until we've got just the right wetness. I'm not sure what you would call it, but I think you know what I mean. Also, another problem we've got is the paper curves up here and we're getting a slight puddle there. So what we can do about that is just dry the brush. This is clean because I've washed it, and then just wipe up that puddle at the top there. Now it must be ready by now. So once again, yeah, can you see that's not spreading very, very quickly? It seems to be holding its position. That's what we want. So I'm going to do something very simple here. 1 bump, 2 bumps, maybe 3, 4, and then 1 more up here. Now these look too regular and we don't want regular, so I'm going to do a bigger one like that. And then another little bump there, and I think that looks fine. Whoops. So it comes down and then basically goes back up again. Something like that. We don't want it like a mirror image, both sides a mirror image of one another. And then, wow, I don't know if you can hear that, but a very, very noisy motorbike just went past. Really is annoying sometimes. Now I'm going to wash this out and I'm going to get a faint red. So that's very, very, there's just a touch of red in there. It's very, very faint, coming up like that. There we go. Great stuff. Now I'm going to do a purple cloud here and another one here, and then a faint blue at the bottom. I think this wetness is just right and I'm not having to rush. I don't feel like it's drying out too quickly, but sometimes it does, and then you need to use the spray bottle. So I think that's about the right strength. Let's test it. Yeah, so I'm going to have a bit like that, and then bit comes down, and what a lovely colour that is. Oh dear, I got a few splatters. I wouldn't worry about it. Sometimes you can hide them, but there's no need to go up there. We'll just have to leave that. I could probably wipe that out with tissue actually, because it's white there. So there we go. That got rid of that. And then we've got one more cloud here coming up. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to do faint blue at the bottom. So here we go. Bit stronger than I wanted. So I'm wiping off that paint. I'm drying my brush because I don't want it too wet. And then slowly going up. Yeah. That will do. I'm not too keen on those little marks, so this is tricky. It might be best to leave it, but I'm going to go over that again. But I need to make sure my mix is thick and roughly the same colour, because if it's too watery we're going to get an ugly mark there, and we really don't want that. Okay, so I think I've safely managed to fill that in, and also maybe here a little. It's got a lovely soft edge there. Now you really shouldn't do what I'm doing now, which is playing around with it, because it's drying all the time, and the more dry it gets the more chance of a big ugly mark. So I'm going to leave it there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some tissue. I'm going to fold it again, fold it again, fold it again, and then get this really, hopefully, tight corner. And I'm going to do this beautiful highlight. Now you can only see this highlight when you've got the red above. In this white area you're not really going to see anything, although it can help you to make a nicer edge. So you can clean up your edges a little bit. Once the tissue gets dirty, we need to fold it in a different area, like that. And I'm going to do the same here. Now this highlight is a bit on the thick side, but I still like it. And there we go. And the final thing I want to show you, now this is a bit dangerous, and you have to wait until these clouds are not, well, until they've dried quite a bit. But what you can do is rays of light coming through them. So let's test this. I think it's still too wet. Maybe at first it's best to try it on this light red area, because that's been there a longer time and so it's dried more. And also if I make a mistake with that, because it's so light, you're not going to see it so much. So here we go. You see that? Now remember, this is sun, and the sun is shining out in like a circular way. So you've got rays coming down and then rays coming out like that. So we want to remember that when we do these rays. Okay. Oh yeah, so there we go. That's actually looking quite good. And the next thing is be careful, paint starts to collect on the tissue, and if you're not careful you'll put this paint back on the paper and it will look quite ugly, especially if it's over a white area. So I'm getting some new tissue and I'm quite confident now. I've got a good sense of how wet this is, and it's not too wet. It is a difficult technique, and I've done this many times now, so I've really gotten good at this. But if you look at that, doesn't that look amazing? I used to at one time think that you couldn't really use tissue for clouds. I thought it was very amateurish, but I've completely changed my mind about that, and I now think it looks really good. Now this I didn't want, or I wasn't expecting these lines coming down, but it could actually be rain in the distance. At least that's what I'm telling myself, and so I quite like that. If I was to wipe that up now, it might become very white, and really I want my white area to be here. So I think I'm going to leave that. I'm very happy with it. Next, let's do the sea.